I'm planning to write the concise story of how the James Bond films were made by interviewing the people who worked on each film and comparing.
There's a lot.
There are a lot of films.
People.
It's a lot of different types of stories, but I think the series is the most successful series in history.
Well, I think easily.
With all the interest in that type of adventure, which has spread over the years, I think.
Which is escapist fantasy adventure, which is what people, I think, in the main enjoy above any other kind of film.
And instead of giving us this blood and gore, which is part and parcel now, they give us a carefully blended. There wasn't
taking you up on that. There was a time when I thought the Bond films were becoming too sadistic in quality.
Really?
A little bit too vicious.
When was that?
Well, it started more or less, I think, with the second or third movie.
From Russia with Love was a very violent film.
Very. I don't see anything wrong with that unless it's overdone. I've never seen anything wrong with violence, provided it really is an essential part of the story. I don't like excessive violence. I think what you suggest is much more effective than what you see. That applies to everything, in my opinion, particularly where suspense is involved. The old adage, leave it to the audience, leave it to their imagination, because they'll always think of something far worse than what you happen to be doing or somebody else is. That is a cliche, but it's still valid, absolutely. There was a time when I felt that they were putting in, well, I don't know, sort of erotic sadism into the character of Bond, which made him most unattractive. Bond was a ruthless character, right. Bond was attracted to women, right. Bond was a brave man, right. Bond was almost Superman. In fact, he really was, in many ways. Right. So, in terms of telling an escapist adventure story on the screen, which is what these are, you obviously have to endow your hero with somewhat superhuman qualities. He only orders the best food, wears the best suits, eats the best, drinks the best wines, lays the best and the most attractive women, and fights the most dangerous fights and wins, or whatever. There was a time when I felt that the violence in James Bond, which in the beginning had been somewhat fantasy, literally, was dangerously near becoming almost enjoyable. When I say enjoyable, I mean enjoyable to Bond. Like crushing people's hands and trunk of a car, whatever it was, And I felt that some of this was a little bit excessive.
In other words, the human quality of the character was suddenly being left behind.
Being subordinated to the commercial viability of the picture. In other words, if violence is selling, put some more in than we originally intended to put in. It's not necessarily a criticism there. I just felt myself at the time that Bond's qualities of charm were becoming eroticized, if that is the word, excessively. So his qualities of bravery and strength were becoming fantasized to the point where they were becoming sadistic, which made the character less attractive. His treatment of women, well, in a way acceptable insofar as he was a ruthless man and women were only a part of the action, and obviously you had to bring them into stories for obvious reasons. His treatment of women was going beyond the acceptable norm and was becoming vicious. In fact, the character of Bond was beginning, I thought, I can't exactly put my finger on when in terms of the film that did it for me. The character of Bond, instead of being a courageous, intelligent, ruthless and charming man, the character that was developing, in my opinion, rather in the wrong direction, to the point where he was becoming more vicious and more sadistic and more unpleasant than his adversaries. But I know he's fighting fire with fire, but there are ways of doing it. Now, of course, a lot of that is in the books.
Well, but also...
There's no question of that.
But also, Fleming tempered this with a tremendous depression among the character in the later novels. The fact that every time the books open, he was depressed about his killing and his life.
Well, he'd either had some traumatic experience and lost his wife, or he'd been drugged. Like the famous occasion when he tries to assassinate M with a gas spray, at the beginning, I think it's the beginning of The Man with the Golden Gun.
Sure, it was last novel.
That's right. And his weakest.
Mhm.
But then that may have been because his powers of invention were beginning to dry up, and it also could have been the fact that he was a very sick man. Because I saw him, I knew him very well, as you know, he was a distant cousin of mine,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to see him quite frequently. We used to play golf together, and I
Uh-huh.
saw him at the Royal St George's Golf Club, which is in Sandwich, in Kent.
Uh-huh. He lived right near there, I believe.
Yes, he did. He lived in St Margaret's Bay. And I saw him at the club between a month and 2 months before he died. And it seemed at the time that his greatest ambition was to be the captain of the Royal St George's Golf Club, which is a very eminent and well-known club and course on the coast of Kent, Sandwich Bay. It seemed to be more important to him at the time than anything else, and he was in fact going to be the next captain, and he died before he could become the next captain. Ian was a man of enormous personal charm. Nobody ever questions that. He was admired, respected, and loved by men and women alike in all the right ways. He was a man's man, and he was a woman's man. He had very definite Bond qualities. A man with a remarkable war record and naval intelligence, responsible for a large number of deception operations, rather along the lines of what we were talking about earlier on. A man with a very fertile and brilliant brain.
Where did you first meet him?
I can't remember when I was a very small boy.
How are you related to him?
My stepfather, Harcourt Rose,
Uh-huh.
was his uncle.
His uncle, his father's brother.
My stepfather's sister, Evelyn Rose,
Uh-huh.
Evelyn, became Evelyn Fleming,
Uh-huh.
and had 3 sons, Peter, Ian, and the third whose name I've forgotten.
Uh-huh.
So he was a step-cousin, which is very hardly a relation at all. But we called each other cousins. I was introduced to him when I was a very small boy. I didn't know who he was, and then many, many years later I met him again when he'd suddenly become famous overnight as the author of Dr. No. And then I used to see more and more of him at that particular golf club, and we used to play a lot of golf together. I also saw him in Jamaica sometimes when I went there, where he lived, Golden Eye,
What was that like?
Oracabessa.
It must have been a very beautiful...
Well, it is beautiful, the north coast of Jamaica, near Ocho Rios. There's this village of Oracabessa, and he had this house called Golden Eye, where he wrote almost all his books, if I remember rightly.
Just recently read his biography by John Pearson. I thought
Yes,
it
I've
was
read
very
that.
interesting.
He was an extraordinary man. He was a great athlete at Eton. He was Victor Ludorum, as they say, on at least one occasion.
Mhm.
You know. And of course, they were a remarkable family, and Peter was a remarkable man. Peter Fleming was not only a remarkable writer, but he was one of the greatest explorers of our time, and wrote some wonderful books. He also wrote, on occasion, some very good thrillers. Ian, of course, became the better man of the two for the obvious reasons. He created James Bond, and you know, of course, on whom James Bond is based. There is James Bond alive today, who was a great friend of Ian Fleming's, who wrote a book called Birds of the West Indies.
Oh,
and
I
was
thought
an
it- that-
ornithologist.
I
That's
thought he
where
only
he
got
got the name.
the-
No, I mean, that's where he got the name
Right.
from.
Oh, yes.
Where he got the character from, well, that could be an amalgam of so many different people that he had either met during the war, coupled with a character he'd invented out of his own mind. You must realize, of course, that in terms of being a secret agent, or whatever you like to call it, operator, Bond would have been an utter disaster in real life, because his very appearance, his way of life, his whole, the manner in which he's presented in the stories is one of such conspicuous. You're presenting a man with such conspicuous qualities, he wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. The great thing about a successful agent or an operator is that he should be inconspicuous, or she should be inconspicuous, and should blend into the crowd as a faceless individual. Well, Bond is the very antithesis of all those things. He is not faceless. He draws attention to himself all the time by public confrontations with his antagonists, like, famous business in Casino Royale, the game in the casino.
When the sheep.
Right, Le Chiffre. And everybody knows who he is, and everybody knows that he's 00, authorized to kill, and everybody knows what he looks like, because he's a handsome man. He's always around with some beautiful women on his arm. He's the most conspicuous person. So in terms of real-life espionage and real-life... what was the word I'm looking for? Discovery by the other side, he wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. I mean, he is a fantasy character. The characteristics of James Bond are certainly based... I mean, what he actually does and what he actually achieves, although highly romanticized, are in fact based on what agents do. They do kill.
Mhm.
There are people who are licensed to kill, and there have been for many years. The Russian equivalent of this department, which calls itself the Department of Wet Things, literally, within the KGB. Those are the killing squads. They have them in this country. They had them in Britain. They went under a variety of different names. Terminate with extreme prejudice was a phrase used by the FBI and the CIA for a hit. At least it used to be.
I'm sure it still exists.
Oh, probably. Well, in fact, I think almost certainly. But in the world of international espionage, James Bond is really a fantasy figure. As I say, the fact that he draws attention to himself by his appearance, by his clothes, by the way he orders a meal, and he's the least inconspicuous character that you can imagine. And he's always out in the open. And his adversaries always seem to know who he is. So therefore, in reality, he would have been quite useless as a spy. He would have been effective as a killing machine, but in no other way, assuming that he ever got to the point where he killed somebody before they knocked him off.
Mhm.
So, as I said, the faceless men and the men who were the real agents, and Bond is certainly not a faceless man. He would never have been a successful literary creation if he had been a faceless man. The only man who's got away with that kind of thing is Len Dayton,
Mhm.
whose faceless men are indeed that, but they're very dull.
Like Michael Caine.
Well, the Ipcress file you're thinking of, yes, like even Edward Fox in The Day of the Jackal. This is not a criticism of the actors concerned at all. It's a presentation of the character.
Oh, sure.
You see, the Jackal had to be a man that nobody would notice or remember.
Mhm.
Edward Fox on the screen was exactly that. But that was reality. But you cannot translate reality onto the screen or into the pages of a book without jazzing it up a bit and glamorizing it slightly, which is why Ian did such a marvelous thing with Bond in terms of making him an entertaining person, and why each book was bated breath by the world almost, because he took a character and made him an exotic, charming, ruthless, dangerous man. But as I say, he would have made a disastrous spy in actual reality, which Ian, of course, was well aware of.
Mhm.
But when you're writing a novel about a character and you're continuing to write about that character, you cannot play it down to the point of such reality that it becomes boring to the people who read the books.
Did you ever have the opportunity to play Bond when they were searching for original
No.
character? As an actor?
Well, if nobody ever suggested me, I think many years ago I could have played the character, because after all he's sort of perennially in his 30s.
Uh-huh.
And many years ago I could have played a character, but I suppose the association with another aspect of my activities in the film world prevented me from playing that particular character. They may have thought, no, this man will obviously one day be one of the Bond adversaries. It's ironic that I should have played Scaramanga when Ian was dead, because many, many years ago he told me that he actually wrote Dr. No with me in mind when he wrote the book. He'd seen something I'd done on the screen. I really don't remember what it was. Perhaps it was playing a Chinese, perhaps it was simply playing a heavy as a European. But he had me in mind when he wrote Dr. No. I know that. I don't mean in mind for a movie, because there was never any question at the time that he wrote the book that it was going to be a movie.
Uh-huh.
But when he created the character in print, he told me himself that he had me in mind, because he'd seen some films.
And
I'd
also
done.
the fact that Dr. No is very tall, and
Exactly.
the characteristics are similar.
Exactly. And
Uh-huh.
I didn't ask him ever what he'd seen, but he told me that. And I have no reason to suppose it wasn't true. He did say to me on many occasions, I do hope that one day you will play, he never said Bond, that you will one day play one of the characters from one of my books. He never specified which, except by telling me that, he had me in mind when he wrote Dr. No. But he told me that before the book was made into a film. So it's a very different thing. He's not saying to me, I had you in mind to play Dr. No. That's not what he said.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I had you in mind when I wrote the book. It's a very different thing.
Uh-huh.
Because at the time that he wrote it, I don't know that there was any question of making it into a movie.
Well, not exactly, because I think
Maybe he'd been approached, I don't know.
Dr. No was, I think, written in 58 or 59. They were already in the beginning dealings to make a film. So there's a chance.
Well,
maybe-
perhaps he did suggest me.
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps he did. If so, he never told me. But he did say, I had you in mind. That could be an ambiguous statement. It could have been that he saw me when he described the character. It could have been that he also suggested me to play the character.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sufficiently acquainted with his publication dates and things when he wrote the book.
It was one of the later novels, though.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the film?
Oh, yes, I did. I thought it was excellent.
Joseph Wiseman's good, but he really doesn't have that much to do.
I'm not going to say this, please, on the record, but I thought he was miscast.
You think so?
Yeah. I thought he was miscast. He certainly did not physically personify Dr. No, the way he was described in the book, and Wiseman's a fine actor. But he really wasn't given the opportunity of being a fine actor in that movie, because it was the beginning of what the French call kiss, kiss, bang, bang, Bond, the Bond syndrome. I know whom Ian had in mind when he wrote James Bond, but it was not one single individual. It was, again, an amalgam of several people.
Mm-hmm.
I also know who to him would have been the perfect James Bond on the screen. And I'm not going to say who it was.
Are you going to say David Niven?
No.
No?
No, certainly not. I know who he thought would have been the ideal James Bond on the screen. That is not to say or to imply that he was dissatisfied with Connery. He wasn't. He thought he was very effective, which he was.
Definitely.
So there was no question of Ian saying Sean Connery was wrong. But it's a question of saying so-and-so is 100% and so-and-so is 85 or 90%. And I am not going to say whom Ian had in mind. Whom he would have... If somebody had said to Ian, whom do you want? I know whom he would have mentioned. But he was perfectly satisfied and happy with Connery's.
I read somewhere that Roger Moore was one of the early people considered for the part.
That was not the name. And, well, it's ironic again that he ended up playing it. As I say, it's also ironic that I should play one of the adversaries of Bond, which was always what Ian wanted. Not just because we were distant cousins, but because he also knew me as an actor after his death. But those are the sort of things that happen in life. I only hope he was pleased with the result. Because my Scaramanga, of course, was not remotely like the Scaramanga of the book. Thank heavens, because it was one of his weaker books, which everybody admits. And the character of Scaramanga in the book was simply an unimaginative thug, a man of ungovernable sexual appetite. All his heavies had ungovernable sexual appetites, or strange sexual appetites, or whatever. That makes them somehow more mysterious and perhaps nasty, although, as I said, it was seldom specified.
It's
interesting in great detail.
Reading a bit of the book last night, I came across the dossier that describes Scaramanga, the fact that when he was a child, he was tied in love with a circus elephant, which was...
Well, that's in the film.
Which was...
you know. Yes. I used to introduce Roger to helpless laughter when I came out with those lines. Magnificent African bull elephant. Because when I was going through all that speech in the boxing stadium in Bangkok, we had this boxing, Thai boxing, going on. It was actually happening all the while I was going through the speech. I could hardly hear a thing, let alone what I was saying, and he could hardly hear what I was saying either. And I delivered those lines throughout 2 entire days. Different angles, different camera angles, from behind, from in front, long shot, medium shot, close up, and so on. I reduced Roger to helpless giggles by the end of the first day. So the second day was a bit grim for all of us, simply because, well, not grim, but difficult, because all the while I was delivering these lines, there were thousands of people all around us yelling their heads off because they were watching the boxing that was still going on in the ring. I mean, in order to get the right atmosphere for the crowd behind us in the shots, they had to have the boxers boxing. You can't ask people in a crowd, it's very difficult to imagine something that's going on when it isn't. So in order to get the right atmosphere and to have the background correct, even though the camera was close in on us, they still had the boxing going on in the ring, although it was behind the camera, for the crowds to cheer at and to react to and to watch.
How did they dub this in later on? Or?
Yes, I had to put it in later on. Yes,
sure.
The noise was unbelievable. The noise was absolutely stunning. And it was difficult because it was the only time in the entire film where Scaramanga, for one brief moment of time, explains his own character. the only time that he ever tells the audience through telling Bond why he is the kind of man he is. Obviously, there is that quality in him, and there was when he was a young man. But he says it's a moment of rare weakness for Scaramanga, my only real friend. He's saying, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He's saying it in rather a sad. What's the word I'm looking for? He's indulging in, yes, a kind of sad melancholy, directed partly against himself, and also it's a sort of fond remembrance of the one being, and it wasn't human, to which he was really attached. And therefore it was the one moment in the whole film where Scaramanga becomes in every way a normal human being, insofar as it doesn't last long, but one can almost feel sympathy for the character there. Every day he used to pick me up, put me down, stand on his head, his best trick. And then one day he came bleeding, dying to me. And obviously this is his explanation. It may be a form of justification, I don't know. But it's his explanation to the audience through telling Bond, as it's just the lifting of the veil for a moment. Maybe once some of you are wondering why I am the way I am. Well, that's the real reason. It's a moment of weakness in a way. He thinks, but he has to say it. He has to tell someone. So he chooses to tell Bond, which is the obvious thing to do in literary terms and also in film terms. And also makes the character, just for a fleeting moment, which all characters should be, particularly when they're heavies, just slightly sympathetic. Just for a moment the audience says, "Ah, yes, oh, poor chap." And then he's back to killing someone again, or whatever it may be, and so they're back in the story. That's why you should never play a heavy 100%.
Oh, sure.
You must always play him either with sympathy, with sadness, with loneliness, or with amusement, or with wit, or with charm, or with elegance, or with style, or with any one of those words, glamour, whatever you like, which is why they're more interesting to play, because all those different characteristics can come into playing a part, particularly a part like that. And that's why I was so grateful to Guy Hamilton, as I've said on many occasions, because instead of playing the man as he is in the book, a 100% straight down the line thug with no redeeming qualities at all, no charm, just a hood, a killer, a hitman. I was able to play him as an educated, cultured, articulate man who killed because he liked money, and who killed because he liked women, and who killed because he also enjoyed it. As he said, the only difference between you and me, Mr. Bond, is that you kill for a pittance of a pension, and a well done from Her Majesty the Queen, and I kill because I like it. Which he obviously does. So that liking is there, probably born and bred in him. It only needs, as in the classic phrase, the gun is cocked. It only needs the trigger to be pulled, which obviously happened early on in his life when he shot the trainer. I emptied my toy gun into his eye. That's probably, I presume that was his first killing.
Many of the people I've talked to who are Bond fanatics.
I'm rambling on, of course, you realise that, in and out of
good,
context.
They feel that your character is much more interesting and much more alive than Roger Moore's character.
That may be that. I would only say that if people think that, it can only be because of the way in which the two characters are written. Let's face it, the heavies, all the heavies in the Bond movies, are more interesting than James Bond, no matter who plays him. They all are. They're the great adversaries, and they're far more sketched in and far better defined than Bond himself. Bond never varies. His adversaries always do. I mean, it's predictable that they're going to get him, or they're out to get him, but they are all different. Every single one of them is different. And it's much easier to describe a character when it's a different character than hewing the same line with the same character all the time, because he really can't change. Once you've established him and his patterns of behaviour and his way of life, you can't really change that. But the people he's up against have to be different all the time. I think this was the script. The script portrays Bond in a certain way, and it mustn't vary. He must be charming, elegant, ruthless, successful with women, and almost inhumanly accurate with a gun, etc., 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 etc. The heavies he comes up against are better in many respects at some of the things that James Bond does than James Bond is. But in the end, he wins. He has to win. Now, Scaramanga, as I say in the book, was not a particularly interesting, and certainly not at all an attractive figure. But the combination of the script of Dick Maybaum's script, and I think the original was Tom Mankiewicz, and Guy Hamilton's direction, and whatever I was able to put into it, made the character more interesting and more amusing. He was like a child with a toy. This is what Guy said to me, I remember. He said, of course, at times, that quality of menace that you possess by simply standing still on the screen, you will use in the film. He said that at other times, I will want you to behave almost like a schoolboy with a toy. Mr. Bond, I really am so pleased to see you here. I've got him. When he arrives on the island towards the end of the story, he is like a child with a toy. He's bubbling over with delight. It's a ruthless and a cruel and a sadistic delight. The man is obviously a man of extreme mental ability. He says, of course, I don't understand any of these things. It's quite obvious he understands everything about what's going on there. No man could live on an island by himself, well, not quite by himself, with two people, Knick-Knack and the man who's in charge, whose name I've forgotten, of the machinery.
Oh, yeah.
No man could possibly live on an island and make the money he makes, $1 million a hit, for any government anywhere in the world, and live on an island which is operating solar energy without being very well acquainted with what goes on. So obviously the man is not only physically impressive, athletic and ruthless and totally and completely deadly, but he's obviously a man who's extremely cultured, extremely articulate, extremely intelligent, extremely charming, and intelligent enough in his own brain to understand everything that's going on inside this island. He says, of course, when he's talking to Bond, of course these things are all beyond me, and so I don't understand these things at all. I believe that they tell me, and so on. He knows. Of course he knows. But he is like a child with a toy on two occasions. One, when Bond comes to the island, because he's beside himself with delight. I've got him. I've actually got him, which is why he sends out the challenge in the first place. And I know I can kill him. I know I can beat him. So that is the childishness, or well, not perhaps childishness, but the schoolboy quality of Scaramanga, which is not in the book, and was not in the script. But Guy Hamilton brought it out of me in my performance. And the other is when he's playing with his ray, which destroys the seaplane, and says, "Now, undeniably, Mr. Bond, you will admit that I am the man with the golden gun." That's his toy. So women are his toys. He plays with them. He has his toys with the machinery. And his greatest gift-wrapped package is Bond when he arrives. Because he's been waiting for him. The whole of the story is geared towards bringing Bond to a face-to-face confrontation.
It's interesting, while your toys bring out the character in you and different perspectives and elements.
Which makes the character more interesting.
On the other side of the camera, the Bond character as played by Roger Moore is hurt by his use of gadgets. And
yes, but he wins.
He wins, but in the sense of, as far as the audience is concerned, as far as the
and yes, he knows what happens. He knows what this machinery is for.
Uh-huh.
He reels it off, doesn't he?
Uh-huh.
So he's just as clever as I am.
He's clever, but it's not.
But he's caught at a disadvantage, of course. In real life, Scaramanga would have shot him straight across the dining room table.
Mm-hmm.
But such is the vanity and the ego of Scaramanga. He knows he's the best in the world, but this man James Bond I've heard about, I've got to prove to myself, because nobody else will know except Knick-Knack and the girl and the man who's working on the island. Nobody else will know. And of course eventually others will know, M will know. Nobody will know that I really am the best in the world until I can prove to myself. And the only way I can prove it is the golden gun against the Walter. The two titans, as he says. That's the only way I can prove it, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to show the whole world, as well as show myself, that I am the best. He said, "We are the best," Mr. Bond. He says that.
Were there two versions of the finale? There's a scene with you on a beach.
Yeah.
With
They
a gun
cut that out.
back to back. Now, what was the finale part to that?
Well, they decided that they would cut at the moment when Bond turns round and sees an empty beach, because they decided that what we subsequently did would hold up the pace of the picture. As you recall, Bond turns round after we're marching off, and when he turns round, nothing. Knick-Knack's disappeared, I've disappeared. The next time you see me is when I'm already going into the fun house, right?
Right.
Coming around the corner of a sort of curtain. and Knick-Knack's coming up and saying because Knick-Knack wants to take over for me, you see. And that was the way the film came out, right? The way we shot it was that you could see by my face that I wasn't going to play the game according to the rules, that I'm walking towards the camera, that I'm walking off in the opposite direction. And I dived out of the frame. I just disappeared.
Uh-huh.
So when Bond turned round, I'd gone. I cheated, of course, in other words. Which is an interesting psychological point, because if he really thinks he's the best, why would you bother to cheat? I cheated, and I was hiding in the rocks. He realizes I'm hiding in the rocks. And we have a long conversation, shouting at each other. Bond is 30 or 40 yards away, hiding behind the rocks, and I'm 20 or 30 or 40 yards away, hiding behind a rock. Cat and mouse, you see. And he tries to flush me out. And the way that he does it, or he thinks he does it, is he happens to have a thermos, and there happens to be some petrol, and he fills his thermos with petrol and throws the thermos over in the direction of my voice and shoots the thermos in the air, which explodes behind my head, which is what happened. We shot it. But they decided that two men standing behind rocks 50 yards apart, talking, held up the pace of the picture, and they're probably right.
Too conventional.
Yeah. Although the things that I was saying, I can't recall them exactly. But notice there's a wind blowing off the sea, Mr. Bond, or whatever it was he said. I can't quite remember what it was. I mean, he's saying Bond's saying, you think this is playing the game, or words to that effect, and Scaramanga's saying, yes, but there are no rules to this game. I mean, those were not the exact lines, but this is the way that dialogue went.
Now, the funhouse sequence in the beginning and the end now, was this still planned for that? Or were we actually...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you weren't actually killed on the rocks, you just retreated again to the
funhouse?
funhouse.
No, I went straight away and went into the funhouse.
I see.
Well, that didn't change.
That didn't change.
No,
now, that was one aspect of the film which I thought was a little too repetitious. I thought that the sequence in the funhouse in the beginning was fine.
I did all that, including diving over the sofas and things and landing on the floor behind. I did it all. I was not doubling the picture.
That's kind of...
Well, Guy was aware of the fact that I'd done a few things like that in my career, and he said, well, the next shot, I remember my standing with the next stuntman came up to me and said, you wouldn't believe what they wanted to do in the next shot. And I said, well, what is it this time? And he said, they wanted to take a flying dive and go over the back of the sofa onto the floor, and the floor was like this, there were no mattresses. So I said, oh. So I did it, about 5 or 6 times. It didn't do my back any good. But it didn't hurt me or anything like that. I did.
Was Bob Simmons one of the stuntmen there?
No.
Or somebody else?
No.
Guy Hamilton was the first one who approached you for the role, is that right?
Yes. Well, I mean, he rang, my agent rang me and said that Guy Hamilton's going to ring you up in connection with the man with the golden gun. And I said, fine. But I'd known Guy for a long, long time, but I'd never worked with him in front of the camera. I'd done some dubbing for him once in a picture in which I dubbed the voices of 6 different characters. One was a black American, one was a Japanese, one was an Indian, one was something in a film he directed called Manuela, in which I dubbed 6 of the voices, with all the different accents.
Manuela?
Voices. Yeah. For Trevor Howard.
Oh, yes.
And I'd never worked with him, though, in front of the camera as an actor, ever. This is the first one. I hope it won't be the last. But we'd known each other for a very long time. And sure enough, the telephone call came, and the guy said, would I meet him in the White Elephant for lunch in London, where we talked about the man with the golden gun and the part of Scaramanga, and he said, I remember his words, Scaramanga is a breeze. He said, and I think you get a lot of fun playing it, and we'd like you to play it. Would you read the script? I took it home, I read it, I said yes, and that was that.
Tell me about your feelings about the script the first time through, did you?
Oh, I thought it was great fun. I mean, this is really the operative word with a Bond movie. It's got to be fun.
Uh-huh.
It's got to be fun. There is an element of great fantasy in Bond, as I said earlier on, which is why I thought that unnecessary violence makes it rather unattractive. A man's going to be shot, bang, and he falls over, You don't have to show a close-up of the bullet if it's a dum-dum going out of his back.
Mm-hmm.
But they're getting awfully close to that at one stage, I thought.
In the original few Bond films, the violence...
There's only one I haven't seen, and that was Diamonds Are Forever. I never saw that. seem to have missed it all the way along the line.
They brought Sean Connery back.
The most successful, I understand, was Thunderball.
$52 million worldwide. And apparently the last Live and Let Die did just equally as well.
Yeah, I believe The Man with the Golden Gun did very well. I have no idea what the figure was.
I think the good thing about the Bond films is that they
But
do
they
so
told
well.
me it did. Well, the next one will obviously do well too, Spy Who Loved Me. They've got this man who's over 7 feet tall playing the heavy.
Jaws.
Who's a gigantic.
His name's Jaws in the film. He has
Yeah.
steel teeth.
Well, that's not a bad idea, and they've got a super set for the submarines and everything. They do things in a big way, and why not? Because to make money, you've got to spend money in that kind of film. And the thing about Man with the Golden Gun that I liked, not just as a man who played Scaramanga, but about the story as a whole, was that it was the only Bond film that I recall having seen, and I've seen them all except Diamonds Are Forever, as I said, where the characters were not overpowered by the machinery. In most of the previous Bond pictures, the mechanical gimmicks, the tools of the trade, or whatever they are, whether it's the car or whatever it is, have overpowered the performers, almost always. This picture, the people really were real. The characters were not so much the cardboard figures that they had been in the earlier
That's very
pictures.
true.
With the exception of Goldfinger, who was superbly played, of course, by Gerd Fröbe. He was very much a person. The thing about The Man with the Golden Gun is they were real people and not just, I don't know, cardboard figures.
Not just computer operators.
Stock performances, you know. And for that reason, I enjoyed the picture. It certainly did wonderfully well all over the world. It broke all sorts of box office records. But then you have to bear in mind that box office records have been broken every day because the price of seats are going up all the time. So, of course, the receipts are higher. Thunderball, you say, was $52 million. Live and Let Die was probably not far off. I think somebody told me that The Man with the Golden Gun was about 45.
They do very well.
That was
around
about the
world.
figure I was told. Well, that's an enormous sum of money when you come to think of it. Because I don't know what the picture cost. I think it was about $8 or $9 million. And if you take the premise that it's 2.5 times that before you're in profit, they're laughing, aren't they? 2.5 times 8 is 20. And if it's taken 45, grossed it worldwide, one assumes that there's a profit of $25 million. It doesn't quite work out that way, but it's pretty good.
Where did you first begin working on the film? Did you first go on location?
Oh, right away, down to the beach. That was the first scene I shot in the picture. Was the beach.
What beach?
On this island.
On this island?
Yeah.
This is off the coast of Siam?
Yes.
One of the most beautiful...
I've never seen anything like it.
It's incredible.
Just like a Japanese print. Quite incredible. And the pirates were just... they were real, genuine pirates dealing in drugs and murderous raids and things. They had a community about 3 or 4 islands away. We used to sail past them every day. It was very remote and very primitive indeed, but we were wonderfully well looked after. Wonderfully well looked after. They had a unit in there which had, laid down special floors and put in fans for us in our bedrooms.
Oh, there was an actual hotel on the island?
No, it wasn't a hotel really. It was a building that was converted into a hotel. Well, not a hotel, but rooms for us, which were very comfortable and very well put together. And we had delicious food, which was wonderfully well organised. Cubby Broccoli is a dream producer to work for. Nothing is too much trouble. Nothing. And lived like a prince in Hong Kong, in the peninsula, and also in the Oriental Hotel in Bangkok. These two the best hotels in the East.
Is that where you first landed in Bangkok?
First landed in Bangkok 5 o'clock in the morning after an 11-hour flight from London Airport on Thai International, DC-8. And they were trained originally by SAS, so there was an SAS pilot on the plane. And after 2 or 3 days in Bangkok, we flew down to this place, Phuket, P-H-U-K-E-T, which is a village.
On that island?
No, that was on the mainland.
On the mainland.
Over jungle such as I've frankly never seen, and mountains, amazing experience, 2-hour flight in a small airplane over this extraordinary terrain, and then you see these islands sticking up out of the sea. Incredible, like the dawn of time.
They looked that way.
Oh, they did, and there was nothing faked about it at all. We went to shoot for a week, I think it was.
You crossed the islands in a little boat?
Yes. The same kind of boat that Bond was
going to the...
through the clongs. They're called clong.
The
canal is called a clong. There's a clong boat. There is a special name for it, I can't remember, with the sort of long screw.
Right.
And the propeller at the end. We went out to the island on those boats too. Some of us did. But there were other launches as well. But if some of us had finished and wanted to get back to the mainland, we'd pop into one of these little boats. They were tremendous fun. And I enjoyed every minute of it. It was a very remote area, very remote. None of our wives or families joined us out there.
What actually was there on the island at all? Just
Absolutely nothing.
So actually, the only scenes that were filmed were you just walking along the beach and
Yes.
and you spent a whole week there doing just that.
I can't remember exactly how long we were there because there were other things beyond our duel. There was Bond arriving, the seaplane. There was Bond and me on the beach. Bond and Midnight getting out with all those explosions.
Oh, you mean Good Night?
Good Night, I mean, with all those explosions coming out. And then me blowing up the seaplane, which of course was shot on the island. I mean, the actual blowing up the seaplane.
That wasn't a real seaplane.
Yes, it was.
It was?
Yeah.
How did they do that?
Well, they just blew it up.
Was it, I don't remember, was it in the air?
No, it was on the beach.
It was on the beach.
When he landed, he lands on the beach, doesn't he, with the seaplane. And then I then blow it up so he can't get away.
Oh, that's right. I haven't seen the film in a while. It hasn't been
No,
re-released.
it was on the Z channel.
Yeah, I missed it.
It was on commercial for the first time, about 6 weeks or so.
Yeah,
ago.
I missed it.
That was a real seaplane, and incidentally, that stunt with the car was not faked. That was not a.
Oh no.
That was really done.
But didn't they ruin it though with that music?
I didn't even notice the
Oh,
music.
yes, I did. I thought that was a beautiful stunt though.
It was done once.
Were you there when they filmed it?
Yes.
Where was it filmed?
It was filmed just outside Bangkok, over one of those klongs, over one of the canals. They had a computer work on this. They'd fed all the, for the speed and the angle of takeoff and the angle of landing in order to get the 360-degree rotation in the air. The distance had to be calculated precisely by a computer somewhere in the States. Cubby would tell you where. I was told it cost about $200,000 to get all that information.
And you did it
And
for-
the speed had to be exactly either 41 or 42, not 40 or 43, at which he took off. It was done by a man called Bumps Willard. Yep, he'd never done it in his life.
Was he an English stunt?
No, American.
American.
From this American driving team, which is headed by a man called Jay Milligan, and they tour the States with this. I can't remember what they call themselves. They worked in the Houston Astrodome. They've done that stunt before.
They did.
But the people at the Bond production had a copyright on that stunt for something like 1 or 2 years, during which time they agreed they wouldn't do it anywhere else. And it was done for the first time by this man, Bumps Willard, and he'd never done it before. And he did it once.
He
once
just did
only, just perfectly. Unbelievable.
Cool.
You know, it really was. And it was so perfect, so absolutely perfect, that I remember Guy being quite concerned, because it was so perfect. He said people might think this is a trick. You know, because it really sort of, I mean, it landed literally on all 4 wheels. It was quite uncanny. And there was some discussion about doing it again, but I don't think that lasted very long.
What time of day was it filmed?
It was filmed just after lunch. It was filmed about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. If I remember correctly, there were cranes standing by, ambulances, and all sorts of things. Yes, went into the water to get the guy out. He did it with a specially built car. The steering wheel was right in the middle, and there were dummies of Bond and the sheriff on either side of him, and he had to lie flat with his face blacked and the black thing so he couldn't see him, presumably guiding with either manual controls or with his feet. I mean, guiding the speed, either with his feet or manual controls, because that I don't remember. But it was an American Motors car. My car, which was gold, was an American Motors car. Oh, no, wait a minute, was it? No, wait a minute, I'm not sure now. Not too sure about that, but his was an American Motors car, which he drove out of the showroom.
Sure, right.
I think it was a Matador. And I've still got the American, I've still got the jacket, the red, white and blue jacket with the man with the golden gun logo on it. From American Motors. I've still got it. I don't wear it. It's just a sort of thing like a nylon jacket.
It was mentioned in the trades at the time that the film made use of a lot of names. The Sony cameras, the American motor cars, I guess maybe to get the free material from the company.
And they didn't make use of any of the names of the gun itself, because
No.
that was all designed and made by somebody in London. I think the lighter was a Calibri lighter, I think. I'm not too sure, but the whole idea of putting the gun together, incidentally, was far from easy.
It was actually a cigarette lighter?
It's a cigarette lighter, cigarette case, a fountain pen, and a cufflink. And it really wasn't all that easy to put together. In fact, I had quite a few tries before I managed to get it going. It didn't work. I didn't work it correctly every time.
So you did all this to make it into a gun, right?
That's right. We had to shoot not a lot of takes, but quite a few to enable me to get it together. And as I said, it wasn't easy. Naturally, of course, I wanted to do it as quickly and as fluidly as possible, but it was far from easy to do that.
How long were you in
the East?
In the ancient country?
In Thailand and in Hong Kong. I had very little to do in Hong Kong. Only the exterior of high fat and walking down into my junk. We shot that scene twice, the high fat scene, because we shot the entire sequence twice. It was the first time we had to shoot it in light like this. And then they thought it really doesn't look very good, because it was the rainy season starting when we got there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did have some fine weather, blue skies, and we shot the entire sequence all over again.
In blue skies?
Yeah.
That's just before the Kung Fu sequence?
I sent Mr. Bond to school. Oh yes, quite a bit before that, because it's when he arrives with his nipple in the middle.
It's crazy.
And you see me looking at him, smiling, and then I talk to. Then I go back again later, remember?
Oh yes.
Because high fat is made of a mess of things, and I said, you let him get away. So that scene takes place after the school.
Mm.
First time you see me is before the school.
And you don't actually see you
At
just
high
see
fat. At least you see me, looking through the glasses, smiling.
Oh.
Just once.
I wish I had seen
Just
it more
once.
than once.
Just once. I've only seen it twice.
I'd seen all the others about 6 or 7 times.
And then I come back and shoot high fat, and that's the first time you see the gun being put together.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's really the only time you see it put together in great detail on the table in front of me, because at the end I put it together under the table. So I put down my pen, and I was making note of that, I say. The pen's already out, you see. This is in the dining room table, a glass top table at the end of Bond and Goodnight. I was making note of that, I say. So the pen is already out. The cigarette case goes onto the table automatically as if I'm going to have a smoke. Now the audience by this time knows, of course, because they've seen it happen with high fat. The pen's on the table, the cigarette case is on the table. So the light is on the table to light my cigarette. He still doesn't know how the gun's put together. Bond doesn't. And suddenly, it's there. He's very quietly put it together under the table. You don't see me put it together under the table because that would be repetitious. The only time you actually see me the first time you see it, the first time you actually see it, if I remember correctly, is when I'm shooting the man in the street, outside the nightclub. Then you see it in detail in the scene with the girl, which is quite an erotic, a very suggestive scene. The gun is a phallic symbol, of course. And then, but you still haven't seen it put together. Then you see me put it together in front of high fat, when his back is turned and he's fiddling with the safe, you see me put everything together. Then you really see it put together. It's the only time in the film you really do it, in detail.
One of the atmospheric sequences in the film is showing the QE2 in that harbor.
That's right.
That was beautiful.
Well, they did. I mean, they shot it from the outside and then built the set in pinewood on a slant.
That was kind of crazy, though. The character of M and Q, the little banter there, was kind of a little too way out.
Oh, just do shut up, Q. Well, I guess, But
what was that little
this business of a nipple, incidentally, a third nipple, I talked to my doctor about this before I did the film. He said it's not nearly as unusual as you might think. Lots of people have extra nipples. And some of them are they're almost like little pinpricks. And never 3 in a row. It's what they call the milk line of the animal. It gives suck through its teats. So if there is an extra nipple, it's always above or below the normal ones. It's not an extra breast, it's an extra nipple. And the strange thing is I met at least 3 or 4 people after that film was done who admitted that they had sort of vaguely. It could only be a little thing like a pimple. But it's not as unusual as you might think, as doctors will tell you.
That's interesting.
Ian must have found this out. He chose to use it as an excuse for ungovernable sexual appetite, which I have yet to hear being anything to do with an extra nipple. It might have something to do if you had an extra something else. I don't know. It might help. That might help a little more. That might produce a new and ungovernable sexual appetite.
What was the little man, Herb, I believe?
Hervé Villechaize.
Well, he must have been crazy to work with.
Oh, he was marvelous. Very funny.
He steals the film in certain sequences.
That's another thing about the picture. Everybody has their moments, which is right.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
I think it would have been the best one if they had kind of cleaned up the film a little. I thought the use of Clifton James as
Well, he was, he was so popular in Live and Let Die that they brought him in.
but as a cameo, fine. But to be an insufferable bore through 10 minutes of chase, I thought.
Yes,
was,
I must say, he himself said to me on one occasion when we were playing golf in Bangkok, he said, I don't know how my characterization of this character is going to go down in certain parts of the United States.
And
There are people like that.
oh yes. Well, in Live and Let Die, I thought he was, perfect timing, perfect for him to come in that situation. This is the motorboats flying over.
Oh, marvelous!
It was
Marvelous. He's a good actor.
Mm-hmm. And Britt Eklund, of course, is perfect Bond girl.
Very pretty.
And
Maud Adams, very beautiful.
Very beautiful too.
I don't know what's happened to her.
It's interesting. The Bond girls appear and they disappear.
With one exception.
Ursula Andress would be the only. Well, Diana Rigg, of course, was has done.
Yeah, but then she was in the least successful of the Bond movies, I thought.
I thought it was one of the had one
Beautiful
of the
to
best
look at.
Mm-hmm.
The poor girl was swamped by. Well, not swamped. That's not the word. Let's say her presentation of her character, and she's a fine actress, was unfortunately not what it could have been for various reasons, which I really don't have to mention.
Well, I think the Lazenby character was just too blasé. I thought he was.
I thought he was expecting a lot of George Lazenby to play that part absolutely dead cold without copying another actor, and frankly, I thought he did quite a good job.
Well,
considering.
I thought he.
But he wasn't an actor, I understand, at all. I thought he did a good job.
I thought he was trying to be too much like Bond and didn't develop a certain identity. I mean, too much like Connery and didn't develop.
Well, this is it. You see, Roger, of course, doesn't fall into that trap.
Right.
He doesn't attempt to portray another actor, which is a mistake. You can always borrow from other actors. Every actor alive has done that one time or another.
Mm-hmm. Lazenby looked a lot like, like the Bond character. I mean, he was almost a physical manifestation. And then, I don't know what I'm going to talk to Broccoli and find out what his instructions were, but it would seem to me that he was literally given no leeway in developing his own character. I think the marvelous thing about Connery was the ability to deliver the lines in so much his own,
Don't
cute
forget,
way.
Sean had a good deal of experience as an actor when he came to play Bond already, and Sir Roger, of course, had 25 years behind him.
Uh-huh.
My one is not a criticism, believe me, in any way whatsoever. My one regret was that when Roger portrays Bond, he does not present on the screen the enormous and genuine personal charm that he has. I think he plays him, obviously deliberately. That is the way he and the director and the producer decided to present the character. I never asked him about this, actually, because it's not my business. You don't criticize another actor's work. But Roger has one of the greatest senses of humour I've ever come across in my life. And he has more funny stories than anybody I've ever met. And he's a lovely guy, and he's, I think he's very good in that part. But he concentrates on the dangerous quality of Bond, and a certain sort of pseudo-charm, which is carefully manipulated for his own ends, which is what Bond does, of course, ruthless with women and so on. Roger has more charm, more genuine, real charm than almost anyone I've ever met. It's not put on.
Do you think it's the scripts? Maybe it's...
Could be. I really don't know. You see, I've seen the two that he's done. I will, of course, see the next one. Interesting, too.
Well, the thing about the scripts, I think...
Funnily enough, yesterday afternoon, two of Bond's adversaries were sitting having a drink in the same room up at Bel Air.
Who was that?
Myself and Telly.
Oh.
He's an old friend of mine.
I should have been there. I could have gotten some answers.
Well, he's here at the moment. You better get him while you can.
Oh, that'd be nice.
He's here.
And where does Roger live?
As far as I know, he still lives in his house at Denham, outside London. He quite often comes here. I see his name is down, but whether it means to appear tomorrow night at the White Cliffs of Dover ball that's been given at the Beverly Wilshire.
Huh.
His name is down there. Jean Marsh, Ross Martin, McDowell, Juliet Mills, Roger Moore. So maybe he's here.
Maybe I can... Well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you wanted to interview him...
I have to go through his agent. today.
Not necessarily, or well, yeah, I guess you don't do that, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be in England for about 3.5 weeks. Maybe I can look him up there as well.
Well, if he's there,
If he's
but
there.
if he's here,
Yeah.
well,
Maybe why-
start the ball rolling here, you know.
Yeah. I'll have to do that today.
You see, I can only talk to you about The Man with the Golden Gun from the point of view of A, an actor,
Uh-huh.
B, the actor who played the part, C, my relationship with Fleming, D, my relationship with Moore, E, my own personal experiences on the picture, from the point of view of production, presentation, lines, dialogue, characters, the locations, the story of the Bond film, in other words. There are lots of things about that picture that I can't tell you,
Mhm.
and you don't know.
Well, I plan on interviewing the screenwriter and Mr. Maybaum and the director.
Well, you must ask, well, you have to do that, and you'd have to, Broccoli is the man who would give you the greatest information, of course.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
And he's coming to he's got a huge house here, it looks like a palace, just up there,
I
on
spoke with
Hillcrest
him.
Road. I think he's here, is he?
He's here. I spoke with him yesterday, and he's gonna be.
Do you have his home number? Maybe you could call him at home?
Yeah, I did talk to him at home, as a matter of fact. He
But he lives in what was William Powell's house at one time.
he's not gonna be over there when I'm there,
Because he's sold his house in London, he's moved over here permanently.
I'm gonna have to come back when I finish over there and interview him here because he has no time now. He's leaving for Paris. I think he just left for Paris,
Really?
to do some work over there. Apparently, the film is in the final stages. I guess they're gonna release it in 2 months. But
What would it be like? Because wasn't it a collection of short stories?
no, actually, The Spy Who Loved Me was a very strange story, written from a different person. It was written from a girl's point of view, of a young
that's right.
of the young girl who's traveling to the U.S.
Well, how many have they got left now? I mean, of the actual ones that
Well, they have the
Fleming
short
wrote.
story collection called
They've
For Your
got
Eyes Only.
For Your Eyes Only and Octopussy.
Octopussy, and then they
That's
have
two.
Moonraker,
Moonraker 3 and Colonel's Son.
Colonel's Son.
But that wasn't Fleming.
No, I didn't enjoy it as much.
If I ever play another Bond heavy, that would be the one presumably that I might
But
play.
wasn't he Chinese?
No.
I guess.
I've played Chinese.
Yes, you have.
I've played 7 Chinese. So
That would
I've
make up
played-
for Dr. No. Well, that's 4, and then there's other short stories within the.
And of course they
For
have the
Your
right
Eyes.
to write their own, too.
True. So, like as Broccoli says, they could make Bond films till Doomsday,
That's right.
and if the money coming in, I don't see why not. John Pearson, who wrote the Fleming biography, wrote a book. Did you read it called the unofficial autobiography?
I mean, when James Bond is retired
Uh-huh.
and is living in Bermuda.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I thought that was very entertaining. I liked that.
But also the ending of it made it seem as if he was writing another one as well. Because Irma Bunt apparently is not dead, and she's breeding some giant rats in
A
Australia.
lot of people, I'm happy to say, have expressed regret that Scaramanga died at the end of The Man with the Golden Gun.
Mhm.
Rather tamely, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we get around that, bring him back. As you said, was it you who said the pendulum heart? I said we might find out that his heart was on the right-hand side, not on the left. It wasn't a fatal wound or something. Anybody who can have 3 nipples can have a heart on the right.
Well, that certainly would be nice. It would be.
I doubt it would happen.
No. Let me switch this off.
The only Bond adversary who consistently reappeared, and then not always physically, visually, was Blofeld.
Blofeld, who apparently will probably come back again because he was really disposed of in Diamonds Are Forever.
Well, who knows? He might ask me to play Blofeld.
That might be nice. I didn't like Charles. Well, see, the one you missed, Diamonds Are Forever, Charles Gray played Blofeld. And it was kind of a little too dapper, I think. Not as sadistic as the original one. The film takes place entirely in Las
Donald
Vegas.
Pleasance played him with a rather ludicrous scar on his face.
Uh-huh.
And Telly played him. And, of course, another actor played his hands, stroking the white cat.
Do you know who that was?
Yes, I think it was Eric Pullman.
Eric who?
Eric Pullman, P-O-H-L-M-A-N-N. He was an old friend of mine. At least
Oh.
if it wasn't, it was his voice.
Because that voice is very, very distinctive.
It was Eric Pullman.
Is he still alive?
Yes, I think he lives in Germany now.
Does he live in
He's,
Germany?
originally, I think he's near me. I think.
Because his voice is excellent, especially the short-head crackling. Oh, yes.
A rather thick, mellifluous voice.
Make his death a particularly unpleasant one. And they're discussing the murder of Connery in From Russia with Love. I thought From Russia with Love was one of the best. But that was when the stories...
I thought the best was Goldfinger.
That's...
And incidentally, as you're probably aware, in fact you must be aware, if you've read the book about Ian, we were talking earlier on about golf. Because as well as St. George's, as I told you, in the book, the famous golf match, described as well as St. Mark's, The name of the professional there is Albert Whiting. In the book, he's Albert Blacking. The name of the famous short sixth hole is in reality the Maiden. It's called in the book the Virgin. But everybody who knows that course knows that hole by hole it is that golf course.
How about the caddy?
Do you know what he did?
Caddy's name in the book is Hawker.
Okay, that's right.
And that would be another character. That was such a
Not necessarily. That might not have been based on anyone, but again, a collection of people, the old-time caddies. But it is absolutely inch by inch, blade of grass by blade of grass. It is that course.
But it was filmed there as well?
No. It was filmed on a golf course called Stoke Poges, P-O-G-E-S.
Stoke Poges.
Yes, which is very near Pinewood, in Buckinghamshire. And, in fact, was where Gray wrote his Elegy in the Country Churchyard. Thomas Gray. The famous Elegy in the Country Churchyard.
Did you enjoy that film the most, Goldfinger? I mean, is that your favorite?
What?
You said it was the best. Is that your personal favorite of the series? Aside from Man with the Golden Gun?
Yes.